And we're back with another edition of the Cosmic Crossfire. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We thank you so much for sticking around with us and checking us out here on the show. And it wouldn't be a Cosmic Crossfire without my good friend. He is the man, the myth, the legend behind Rob McCallum Films and robmccallumfilms.com. You got to check out all the great stuff that's coming along the way, including his backed or busted crowdfunding site on Facebook. It's Rob McCallum. What's going on, my friend?
Same old, another day in paradise, as you know. So just living it up, living it large, and just trying to get more done every day. Lots going on in the land of McCallum, I guess you could say, as you well know, and our viewers and listeners know as well.
Well, I tell you what, it is always great to see you busy, because when your plate is full, it seems like you're a little bit of more of a happy kind of guy because, you know, you like that challenge, you like all that stuff thrown your way, and you like to make sure that you get that stuff done and put out a great product each and every time.
Yeah, I definitely like to stay busy. It's easier sometimes than others to be that way. So fatherhood has its challenges with maintaining different activities in life, but we are soldiering on, and we can't let our listeners down without an episode or segment of the Cosmic Crossfire.
Now you got my daughters doing it. Just speaking of fatherhood, you've got my daughters doing it, by the way. Last night they were listening to the show on one of the networks that we're on, and yeah, they were just for the next 2 minutes, Crossfire. That's all I hear in the van.
So it's effective, is what you're saying?
Yes, very much indeed.
We're huge with the 7 to 9 year old women population of the world.
It sounds like it, yes, indeed. Well, again, it is the Cosmic Crossfire, where we talk a lot of great things going on in pop culture. So pray tell, Rob, what's going on in your world when it comes to pop culture?
Well, this might be like the lightning round version of the Cosmic Crossfire. I have no idea how deep we're going to get into some of these topics, so I just have a slew of different things to cover. As people may remember from last week, or when they were talking to us online, we told them that we didn't even get to everything because there's so much going on. So we'll try to include everything this go around. First things first, Disney Park gets a name change. Did you see this, Gerald? Were the once known as Disney MGM Studios in '89, then known as Disney Hollywood Studios in 2008, will now be known as Disney Cinemagine or Cinemagine Park. Now, I mean, I don't know if I like the name, but it's cinema and imagination, so it kind of feels like corporate synergistic opportunism, if that's a word. But why has this park, out of every Disney property around the globe, why has this park been the one most in flux? Why can't a movie studio, an entertainment company, get a park about movies and entertainment right?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure that. I know they keep raising their prices, as they just announced. But
tell me you and Josh are going to detail that if you haven't already.
Well, at some point in time, yeah, we got to. But also, as well, they're putting in a Paul Rudd attraction at one of the theme parks, I believe,
in Japan,
overseas.
Buzz Lightyear's Light Blasters or Astro Blasters is getting remade into Wasp and Ant-Man, so that's interesting.
Yes, that is an excellent thing indeed. I know he's probably very ecstatic about it. But yes, that one has always been in kind of a state of flux. But I think, when it comes to Disney, I really don't think they have a plan, seemingly long term, for that studio. That's always the sense I've gotten. Do you have the same as well, or because it just does never, like you said, it's always in a state of flux. It's always changing. It just seems kind of very strange. I know they probably wanted to get rid of the MGM part of it. I can understand that,
which is why they did that in 2008.
Yeah,
of course.
So I mean, they don't own it, so the MGM rights or the MGM property in and of itself, now they may in the future, who knows? But yeah, I just think it's something that they've really never had a long-term vision for. But if they ever do decide to have something have something concrete, you know what? They'll probably make something very good about it. Or at some point in time, if they do buy into even more studios like they have with Fox, that they could utilize that for that purpose.
It's to me, like, if there's any park, and they're calling it a park now. It's never been a park before. It's the whole Disney classification system. If there's a park or a space in the Disney catalog that should be at its prime, it should be this one, because it has always traditionally been these ancillary brands that Disney has accumulated and kind of just deposited in this one space for people to enjoy and visit. They've got the Muppets that are there. They've had some Pixar offerings. And now with Marvel and all the assets they could be getting from Fox, and we'll come back to that later, as there's some interesting news on the Disney-Fox merger, it just seems like the perfect breeding ground for everything that is what I would call new Disney.
I'm sorry, I just got to hold you up. You said Disney-Fox murder.
Oh, well,
some people will say it's that, but it's, yeah, I know it's
Disney-Fox murder, Fox and the Hound murdered. I don't know. Read into the conspiracy theory. Everything is on purpose. There is no mistakes. The Disney-Fox merger, we'll come back to that. But this is the one space where now there can be a cohesion for everything that is new Disney. I see the Magic Kingdom as classic Disney with a lot of their animated properties and some of their live action ones, and of course the original vision. But Disney Hollywood Studios should encompass that. The Hollywood Studios that they are starting to put out there as mega blockbusters. This should be the home for Marvel. This should be the home for everything Pixar. This should be the home for the Muppets, whatever they're doing with that. And this should be the home for Star Wars as well. So if you anchor a Disney Hollywood Studios around Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar alone, let alone these smaller other entities that they have, that would make a great destination visit. You can go to Classic Disney at the Magic Kingdom. You can go to Animal Kingdom and see everything that's there with their live zoo. Epcot, of course, is getting a little bit of rebranding with Guardians of the Galaxy moving in there instead of the energy conservation experience. But still, it seems pretty clear to me that Disney Hollywood Studios, Disney Cinemagine Park, is the home where all these new brands should be, and it would drive a lot of traffic there. It seems like a missed opportunity, and I don't know why they haven't nailed it yet.
I don't know why either, but like I said, it's just something they've never had a real long-term vision for, and I don't know. It just seems like, like you said, it would be a lot easier if they just go ahead and focus their attention a little bit on it, just a little bit better. And like you said, they have all these properties now. That they need to, that they can lean on, and that they need space for, and that they need to give time and attention to, because there's stuff that people want to go out there and see. And, like you said, with every acquisition that they make, more and more things that they do own seem to get pushed aside. And you talked about the Muppets. The Muppets seem to get pushed into more and more often. The farther and farther reaches the corner of the actual parks, the offshoot and whatnot. And that's a shame, because the Muppets are still, in my opinion, a viable property and could make something like the Cinemagine Park something truly special, along with all the Marvel stuff like you talked about, and the Fox stuff once it finally comes to fruition.
Yeah, the Muppets have gotten a kind of a raw deal. There was some excitement with the 2 feature films that they had that did fairly well, especially the first one with Jason Segel. And they actually started having like a Hall of Presidents presence in the town square there in Frontierland, I believe. So, or New Orleans Square, and I forget the Disney World counterpart to New Orleans Square. Do you recall that off the top of your head? Anyways, it's... They have a presence there, and they've been in some parades, but because it isn't active and they don't know what they're doing with it, it makes it hard to kind of make it a mainstay.
And they're actually, like I said, they're just being pushed further and further to the side. I mean, if you go and visit the Muppet attractions now, where they're located at is not a central point of the park, and it does not seem to be a very important part of the actual park itself at this point in time.
That's true. It's true. So we'll see how Cinemagine Park does going forward. And, of course, that means a lot of collector-exclusive stuff for any Disney collectors, and there's a lot of them out there that have all the other branded merchandise. Over on Amazon, this broke about a week ago. There's a Conan TV series in the works now. My illustrious collaborators who made Power of Grayskull with me have been working on their documentary, A Riddle of Steel, which is the definitive history of Conan the Barbarian. Amazon is developing the drama series based on the books by Robert E. Howard, according to Deadline. The project hails from Colony co-creator Ryan Condal, Game of Thrones director Miguel Sapochnik, and Fargo and Handmaid's Tale executive producer Warren Littlefield, Pathfinder Media, and Endeavor Content. Now, this is, of course, alongside the big news that they're already doing a Lord of the Rings series. So is this a good deal? I feel like this puts them into almost like the fantasy adult version of CW with all their teen dramas. Given it's based on the original material too, and not the Arnold Schwarzenegger films, which are the things in the access to the content that people know most, will people respond to it? Can it be cool? I mean, Marvel just snapped up the rights to Conan Comics recently too.
I think it will. I think it can be cool. I don't know if it will be. I don't know if the end result will actually come to fruition. But it is basing itself off the original books. We saw what happened with the last Conan movie that was put onto the screen. I believe it was with Jason Momoa, and it did not fare well, to my understanding. So I know that right now with audiences, Conan doesn't really have much of a prominence anymore in as far as pop culture right now. So it might take something like an Amazon series to really click for it to come back into the forefront in people's minds.
They've been forever trying to get King Conan going as well, with Schwarzenegger coming back to almost a Logan-like film where Conan is a little bit more elder. He's king. And Schwarzenegger said he'd be up for it, so maybe he will play heavily into this new series.
He's up for anything right now with a paycheck.
I bet he is. He's just got all the time in the world to burn. He's looking for cash money. Give him the cheddar. Give him a little chunk of the cheddar, he says.
Exactly. I mean, he's doing that movie. I don't know when they filmed it with Jackie Chan. From a distant time frame as far as that concerned. But I heard, from all appearances, it might look like a really, really bad movie. It might be one that I think maybe has been put on the shelf as far as being sent over domestically as far as it's concerned. So his career needs a little bit of a boost. Terminator Genesis obviously wasn't the trick. I mentioned that the other day. So it looks like he is trying to do what he can to, try and get a little bit more of the payola before he becomes, dare I say it, irrelevant.
Erased.
He won't be back.
There you go. I love that we both searched for Schwarzenegger pun there. Back to Disney news. This is a little bit fresher. Galaxy Edge, which is the hotel for the new Star Wars attraction, Star Wars Land, has now been confirmed as an in-park hotel at Walt Disney World. That means hotel guests will be able to walk straight from the hotel to the theme land and vice versa, creating the illusion of boarding in intergalactic cruiser docked at planet Batu. Guests will be able to dress like citizens of the Star Wars galaxy, and every window will be a screen offering a look at outer space, according to Slash Film, which is reporting from D23 in Japan. Okay, so this is obviously the first step to the end of society, because this is, once people get a taste of this and this truly immersive, escapist option, nobody's going to want to live in the real world anymore. We'll all be like full-time cosplayers by the end of the century, living with implants in our head that project AR everywhere into the fantasy cinematic universe that we want to exist in. We'll pay subscriptions for monthly to live in a world that is Hogwarts or Star Wars or He-Man or whatever you want. And you can dress like them, you can act like them, and interact and see everything around you. Is this the first step to Skynet or what? Or is this the downfall of the world?
I don't think it is that much, but it surely is cool. And I'll tell you what, it was something that we had talked around here about possibly even going to in 2019, but we realized that first year of its opening is really going to be rough as far as, crowds and whatnot. 2020, we're thinking about it. It's just...
it's not even the crowds, though, right? The first year of anything opening, it has limited,
it's like here in Vegas, the latest and greatest when the hotel pops up, and this happened in the 90s and early 2000s, even to the mid 2000s and beyond. Every time a new hotel pops up, everybody seems to want to go and migrate over to that specific hotel and experience all the great things about it. And same thing with new Disney attractions. And this doesn't go without saying that when Star Wars Land opens, everybody wants to go ahead and flock to it. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited to go see it eventually at some point in time. When that will be, I don't know. But I would love to stay. I would love to, say I'm going to stay at the Star Wars hotel, but I'm sure the price at the end of it is going to be extremely exorbitant to get that kind of experience. So I don't know. People are going to have to dish out a lot of money if they want to go ahead and recreate that Star Wars experience.
Yeah, well, that's my next question. What do you think this is going to cost? Because it's not just, a hotel and a bed. You're getting a fully immersive experience. And for every time I say that, you can add another zero to the price of a one night stay at Galaxy's Edge. I imagine I this has got to be $500 a night.
I think it will not. I think it will not be $500, $600 a night. I think it would actually be more. I think at that point in time, if you want to stay on in the middle of Star Wars land, and if you want to stay in the middle of Star Wars land and get that kind of immersive experience, you're going to have to pay upwards of $600, $700, $800 for it a night if you want to stay in that.
It doesn't end there with the immersion, of course, because there's a lot of in-universe merch that's available. There's a series of toys that will be on sale in the park, according to Slash Film again, and they're designed to look like dolls that are crafted by local artisans. So, for example, they cite the Stormtrooper in a picture, looks exactly like the one that Jyn Erso had in Rogue One, a tiny little doll. And they compare the Harry Potter merchandise at Universal, which really looks like a product complete with logos and brandings, but this won't. This will look like it's a Star Wars Etsy shop kind of deal, I guess, where everything is kind of unique, kind of handmade. Now, I don't know how Disney is going to be able to ramp up production or for legal reasons not leave their seal of approval somewhere on that doll. But this is also another thing that really makes you feel like it's a special one-of-a-kind visit. You can only get the stuff at the Disney parks, but this is just a further extension of that. What do you think about these?
Even if you supposedly you can only get it at the park, quote unquote, you can always get it online because it'll be resold at a nice.
Of course, but the idea is that these are from the local artisans in there, and so what do you think about the idea of having like that approach to merchandise?
I think it's a nice approach. Like I said, I was just being we all know the realities of the situation that eventually it would leak out and stuff like that. But actually, that part of it does seem cool. And I really want to, we talked about what in the past, what they've done as far as other avenues where they haven't really followed through with a vision as far as the Disney Cinemagic Park. We were talking about.
Yeah,
Cinemagine Park. And this seems to be quite the opposite, that they really want to do something right with Star Wars Land, and having those little details are just really make it that much more special. And you're right. It's great that it's going to be little exclusive stuff right there that you can only do if you experience Star Wars Land. But it just seems like that it's going to be just a great experience overall, no matter how crowded it will be, at least early on.
In a recent interview with Lawrence Kasdan, he revealed that the Han Solo movie, Solo, has been in development before Lucasfilm was sold to Disney. He said that George was kicking around a few ideas for what other stories could be involved in the Star Wars universe outside the Star Wars saga, and this has been confirmed by Kathleen Kennedy, talking about when she was starting to come on board as a direct force to make all these films. And this, I think she pegged it down as May before the sale in October, November for Lucasfilm. And basically when Kasdan was asked to help work on The Force Awakens, his work on the Solo film got kind of set aside. Then he was asked by Disney if he was still interested in it, and he wasn't sure. And he said, tell you what, get my son on board to help me write the script. That'll be the jolt in the arm we need to get going. And we're off to the races. So once that happened, that's what revitalized the energy for that project. Couple interesting things here. What do you think about the idea that Lucasfilm was actively in development on such things before the sale? And should they have let it die, considering Kasdan really wasn't all that interested in continuing it unless he had his son do it with him?
Well, that's a little bit of narcissism, I think, speaking there when it comes to what Kasdan was thinking. And I also think that obviously this is something, in my opinion, that is a great idea that shouldn't have died. Might it have been the difference from George Lucas selling off the Star Wars properties? I don't know if that would have been the case, but I personally do want to know more about as you call him, Ham Solo and his entire story and background. And it's not surprising to me that it's been something in development for a while. I mean, the characters, how many years old now? 41 years old, going 42 years old. So obviously they've kicked around a lot of stories. There's been hundreds and thousands of novels based on the Star Wars universe. So it doesn't surprise me that this all was conceived of beforehand. It's just nice to see that it's coming to fruition. Whether or not it comes to fruition as a good movie, we'll have to wait and see in late May. But I'm glad it finally is coming to fruition. I'm glad I was proven wrong, and I thinking it was delayed. And I'm just hopeful that it will end up being a very solid film. And I just think Lawrence Kasdan is just crying over spilt milk at this point in time.
Kasdan over spilt milk, the name of my next new album. More remake news. I don't know if you saw this. This is from Paul King, who's the director of the Paddington series, which have been very well received. The first one, I think, was a little bit of a sleeper hit for a lot of people. It went over incredibly well in the UK. It's a great film. It's a little bit more slapsticky than I remember or envisioned the books as being translated to the screen. But the second one, for a while, had a perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if it still does. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Didn't perform at the box office like the ratings had, but it would have been nice to see that correlation between good critical reception and very positive box office reception. But yes, it is still a series that quite surprisingly will have some legs, I think, in the long run because of its quality.
So, of course, everybody wants to know what Mr. Paul King is up to next and what he's been interested in. And he has announced that he's looking at a Willy Wonka reboot. But maybe it's not a reboot. Maybe it's a remake, but it's not. Here's what he has to say, according to Slash Films article. It's not a remake. They've done two films, quite different, but it's possibly an origin story. We're just in the early stages of it, working with a writer called Simon Rich, which is wonderful. I think there's a lot in this character that suggests who he is and also where he might come from or what his childhood or middle age might have been like. So we're exploring that. We're discussing it. We're in the very earliest stages, and we're very excited about what lies ahead. Do we need another Willy Wonka film, Gerald?
No. Tim Burton did it. Johnny Depp did it. We're done with it.
And, that is the only film in recent years that I remember falling asleep to in the theater. I just don't think the story translates well to a cinematic experience. Yes, it's very visual, but it's always that downer ending where you realize that Wonka has been tricking a lot of people, and you've been built up to think this guy is really cool, almost like the Wizard of Oz. And then he's really deceitful and selfish and kind of full of himself. And there's no kind of like redeeming quality to him. You want to love Charlie Bucket because he's, the complete antithesis of who Wonka is. But it just doesn't satisfy. So I'd be really worried about another Wonka film delivering the same down ending.
And then you originally, and then you watch the original movie, and then as a kid or as a young individual, and then, you see this movie and whatnot, and you think it's all right, just think it's kind of cool and whatnot. And then you realize later in life how sadistic that movie was and all the things that went into it and the deep, dark themes that were presented. And then you realize what a downer that was. And,
yeah.
And then the Tim Burton movie that's beyond it. Johnny Depp's performance I thought was pretty good, but it just, the movie itself lacked any type of oomph as far as Tim Burton's work normally does that really puts it over the edge as one of his best, because it's not. And unfortunately, it won't last the test of time as well. And I like you said, I just don't think the story itself after that original movie holds any water anytime we remake it.
I agree. For once, I firmly agree with you, and I don't think we need another one. I think Tim Burton's timing for his remake made a lot of sense. It was 30, 40 years. Tim Burton coming on board with Johnny Depp. That makes sense as a combo.
Yeah, the idea seemed good at the time.
I just did not hit the right notes in 2005, I believe, when it came out. Back to Disney news, because every other piece must be about Disney in some way or another. Not so fast, Disney, a Comcast Fox deal. A report from the Wall Street Journal confirms that Comcast is considering making another bid for Fox after its initial bid was rejected by the company. Comcast's original bid, which was in the low $60 billion range, was reportedly higher than Disney's by 15%, but Fox turned it down over antitrust concerns. Now, antitrust concerns basically mean two media companies would have kind of like a monopoly over everything, thus get shut down. So that made it easier for Fox to say, no, we want this deal to go forward without the headaches. Now, essentially, the entire industry is waiting to see what happens with AT&T's $85 billion acquisition of Time Warner, which was blocked by the Justice Department and now waits a court's judgment of its legality. It's a decision that will have ripple effects through multiple media platforms that could set the tone for further media company acquisitions to come. Again, all according to Slash Film. Basically, if AT&T and Time Warner find a way to go forward, expect a Comcast bid for Fox. Everybody listening is saying, but isn't the deal done? I thought this was reported in November, December. What are you talking about, Cosmic Crossfire, Rob McZob? I'm talking about the deal has been submitted. Nothing is official yet. There are still ways to pull out of this. Everything is submitted, waiting for the basic big seal of approval from the big brother government, so to speak, to make sure that this is legit and everything, and T's and I's are dotted and crossed. What do you think about Comcast potentially buying Fox?
I don't think it will happen. I think at some point, if need be, Disney will just re-up the bid. I think it just makes sense for all parties concerned if it continues to go forward. Comcast and Fox, Comcast had their chance. They didn't cut it, but
they can still come back in, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and they can just try and just poke a needle in the side of Disney and say, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and try and throw a bid out that's larger, and it's up to Fox to go ahead and ultimately make the decision otherwise. But even if that's the case, Disney could still not only counter propose, but also, if it doesn't fall through, I expect there to be a little bit of a legal, messy legal fight as far as it's concerned.
And Disney's already preparing preventative responses with their legal team in case that does go forward. But some experts are also suggesting that should Comcast and Fox make a deal, despite everything that's been done on ink, people suggest that Disney isn't done buying, and as a result of the vacuum that this would leave, would probably make a pitch for Sony or even Paramount, which has been quiet in recent years, as well as trying to make their own franchises and pillars. Paramount has been really quiet, and Disney could find a way to snap them up, which would, of course, give them a leg up not only in television and film assets, but also in the theme park world with all the different Paramount parks that exist.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as that's concerned, and especially if they buy either one of those two, that could really be a number. But Sony is been very unabashed in their wanting to try and sell off some of their assets. So I'm interested to see who actually has an interest of it, because Sony's properties, for the most part, outside of the video game realm, have not exactly endeared itself in the past 10 years.
Except for Spider-Man and Bond.
Yeah, except for those two, but that's what you're basically banking on. But there's not a whole lot behind it that you can really market or rehash.
That's true, and it will be interesting to see how the court determines the legality of AT&T buying Time Warner, because that really will change everything. Just think about AT&T, a cell phone company, a telecommunication company, having access of all of the DC universe, all the Warner Brothers projects, all of HBO. You get a new AT&T smartphone, you get free HBO for 3 months, for example. Think how that goes. You get a free subscription to DC Digital Comics. Like, they're going to have a lot of assets to be able to control and sway people to their side of the touch tone keypad, if you will.
Which would stink for me because I am a Sprint customer.
Really? You're Sprint? I'm all about Verizon. We have no favorites on the show. Like what you like. I do have a lot of AT&T friends, so whatever.
Now, if they're willing to sponsor us, that might change.
Then we may be able to sway them with our greedy corporate thirst. Speaking of corporate thirst, it looks like David Goyer is out of running as He-Man's director. Masters of the Universe has a December 2019 release date, and despite doing his work on the screenplay and still remaining attached as the writer and executive producer of a new Masters of the Universe film, David Goyer says he will not be sitting in the director's chair, despite having a bunch of pictures posted online of concept outfits and costumes for Battle Armor Tila and some other things of all things. So here we are again. Masters of the Universe is without a director and a fast approaching deadline for a film that's going to be really big budgeted and hard to really nail down.
Well, you already called it that, even if they called Rob McZob in on it, that the potential box office success, kind of leaning, I'm here in Vegas, so I would kindly be betting against it with all due respect. And I know you actually said that as well, to some extent, that this doesn't look like the greatest thing in the world. And that may be why David Goyer got out of the director's seat.
Yeah, I mean, he's been paid for his work as a writer, and I'm sure he'll be happy to chime in as an EP, but to sit in there as a director and take a hit for his directing career, which is on shaky ground, maybe, as is, you don't want to helm a $200 million plus film and have that go south when you're barely handling $30, $40 million films with success.
I will tell you how they may be able to make it success.
Oh, I want to hear it.
Okay, you've got to make Skeletor a really cool character that people can actually gravitate to, like he is in the Geico commercials, because he is the hit of that commercial. People do not care about He-Man or anything of that commercial outside of Skeletor, because he's just so cool in that commercial. And as a character over the years, he seems to be like Darth Vader in a much smaller fashion, than that the evil and the darkness that he represented back in 77, that Darth Vader did, seems to have been gravitated in something of a cool type character. I mean, you see people like me wearing Darth Vader t-shirts and other stuff
people
like
you.
Yes.
I want to be a person like you.
Skeletor himself, over the years from the 80s, has actually seemed to become more of a cool individual to gravitate to, because of his sharp and witty one-liners during the series, and his mannerisms and whatnot. It just seemed kind of cool to actually get behind him, even though he's a baddie. So that being said, I think if they were to make a movie, they should not make it in the traditional way that they tried to make it with Dolph Lundgren, and that they should go and look at it from a different approach. And that would be one of the things I would actually target.
Well, I agree with you that Skeletor definitely has to be cool and memorable, Darth Vader-like, Voldemort-like. He's got to be like memorable, strike a tone that is cool, that people really want to like him. Unfortunately, Game of Thrones, has everybody wanting these dark, gritty adult fantasy dramas. But I think if He-Man goes that route, it'll be very much like Jason Momoa's Conan, which we talked about earlier already. I agree with you on that. I think it would be very much like that, or like a bad version of Vikings with some sort of sci-fi tech added in there. I really think the way to go with He-Man, and I'll be interested to see what happens with the Netflix She-Ra series. I think the way to go is looking at something like Teen Titans, the cartoon on Cartoon Network, which is, it is unfortunately kiddie crack and over the top, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. When you have a character like He-Man with the name of He-Man, you can't take itself so seriously. Just have fun with it. Make it colorful, make it lighthearted, make it fun, and like Looney Tunes-esque. Have it high-spirited, over the top, fun, yet still wholesome. That's what you got to do with He-Man, I think, anyways.
I agree with you on that. It should be very campy, should be very light. And like I said, you create that kind of character where people coming out of the theaters actually will like characters like Skeletor, maybe even more than He-Man, and have that cool factor.
I agree. But Gerald, that does it for the Cosmic Crossfire this week. We covered a ton of topics in a short amount of time. So, of course, if listeners want to chime in on any of our topics, and most of which were Disney-related, because Disney can't stay out of the headlines, where can they drop us a line and comment?
Well, they can drop us a line at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, Game Source, Rob McCallum Films, and Backed or Busted Crowdfunding. And before we get out of here, I know, again, you've got some great things going on. Backed or Busted Crowdfunding, the Kitty documentary, but I know that's coming around the corner as far as, and pre-orders are still available. Is that correct?
Yeah, pre-orders for Kitty Origins Evolutions are available through robmccallumfilms.com. We got special links up there for a triplicate DVD, Blu-ray, and live audio CD pack, which is really cool. And of course, we will be unleashing at some point after that the reunion concert that featured several lineups that get showcased within the film itself. So be on the lookout for that. And yes, Backed or Busted is doing incredibly well. We had some awesome episodes go live. One about a Sonic tabletop board game called Sonic Battle Racers. And then another one, which is an indie music project called Fun Ben Lester's new album, which really takes a look at how you can take a small idea and put it out to Kickstarter to just try to earn a small amount of money, but what things go right and what things go wrong is where people can really learn. So despite not having the brand name of like a Sonic the Hedgehog for something like that most recent episode from us, it is the most applicable thing to anybody out there that's doing something creative and small that can use Kickstarter, get a few extra bucks, and make their dream projects truly come to life and become truly amazing.
That sounds truly awesome indeed.
I thought you would truly think so.
Thank you. Absolutely. Like that. Rob, it's been a great pleasure having you part of the show and part of the program. My continued best wishes for you and your family, especially your little one that's probably keeping you up at nights. And is that a little bit of gray hair I start seeing forming?
No, that's been there for a while.
Oh, okay.
That's been there for a while.
Okay, because
that was there after the cinder blocks.
Okay, after the cinder blocks. Well, I had red hair once. 2 kids later, let's say that's
You also had a mustache.
Yeah, that's true. That's true indeed.
Bring back the stash.
Bring back the stash. No, that's only for Henry Cavill. But I will say this, Rob. As always, it's been a great pleasure having you part of the show, and as always, as part of the Cosmic Crossfire.